Joining us now is Timothy Snyder, professor of history at Yale University, the author of both On Freedom and On Tyranny. Professor Snyder, I'm really looking forward to speaking to you tonight. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
One of the things that you warned about in On Tyranny was the marriage of paramilitary force with the state. That you said when a leader essentially can activate not only the power of the state, but also an unofficial paramilitary force that is loyal to him, but that is deniable, that can do things that the government doesn't have to answer for, that that's among the most dangerous situations that an authoritarian can create. Can you elaborate why you think that is, and does that relate to today's commutations and pardons?
So the basic legal function of the police is to allow the law to be enforced. And of course, we make mistakes. Police officers make mistakes. It's imperfect. But that's the logic. The reason why the police are allowed to use violence is that we are governed by law. When you take another group that's not the police, which is not part of the state, which is not governed by law, and say this group can also use violence, then you've changed the nature of the political regime that you're living under. There's maybe still the police, but then there are these other people who aren't the police who may also hurt you or kill you, and they're not governed by law. And then there's a history to this, which is that if these groups are created, if they're allowed, for example, to oversee camps, which we might well see very soon, then they get a habit, they get a taste, they get a certain set of skills, and then they get more and more interesting for them and more ambitious assignments and become more and more important in the society. So the next step is that you're going to see, I'm afraid, these people be deputized for tasks like deportation, or these people to be regularized, normalized as part of the way that we get used to violence being deployed in our country. And then we're no longer pretending that we're a country of law. And as you already said, the problem with what's already happened is that these people have been instructed now that the law doesn't apply to them in the same way that it applies to everyone else.
Professor Snyder, what would you say to people who are feeling what I think was intended for us to feel today, which is a sort of, they use the term shock and awe, as if that worked out well in Iraq, I know. But the idea, and they told us they were going to do this in advance, was to do so much on day one and to do so many things that they knew would be demoralizing and scary to the country that people would feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and too either afraid or intimidated to try to do anything to stand up against it. People who are experiencing those feelings right now are feeling really worried or afraid about what's going on. What would you say to them about how to stand up for their country?
Yeah, I mean, number one, we should be aware that movements within this country, like the civil rights movement, and movements outside of this country, pro-democracy movements, regularly succeed. They regularly are in moments like this, troughs like this, valleys like this, where it feels terrible, and yet nevertheless they can succeed. The second thing to remember is that this is how they want to make you feel. They want to make you feel alone. They want to make you feel powerless. They want to make you feel overwhelmed by the airplanes in the sky and by the angles of the photos of Trump and by the gestures that Elon Musk makes and so on. They want to make you feel that way. So catch yourself before you do. And the third thing is, if you act, especially if you act with other people you admire, who you think are doing good things, you're going to feel better. If you do the little things that you can do, you can catch yourself before you start being dismayed. So and the other thing is, these guys have problems, right? There are divisions between the fascists who are trying to use the oligarchs and the oligarchs who are trying to use the fascists. Virtually all of the MAGA voters' interests are going to go unrepresented in this government of oligarchs. It's going to be hard for them to do many of the things they want to do. An international strategy of alienating your friends and placating your enemies is going to have costs. These things aren't all going to work out. We've just seen a one-day honeymoon, and after that, we're going to see how this marriage of all of these various different types of authoritarian interests actually works. And there will be openings. There will be openings for protesters, for civil society. There will certainly be openings for Democrats in the next 6 months, but you have to have your head up and look for those openings.
Head up, look for the openings. Tim Snyder, professor of history at Yale University. Tim, I have a feeling we'll be talking as much as I can get you to over these next few weeks. Thanks for being here tonight on Day One.